What's going on, beautiful people? Thank you for tuning in once again. I love every single one of you guys, and I appreciate your appreciation of my rants and rambles. So thank you. I love you. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. And we are going to talk about sex in this video. Right? We're going to talk about sex in this video. And sex is something I struggled with all my life. And the reason is I grew up in a Muslim, very conservative family, environment, country, you name it, right? So the only time you can have sex is after marriage, but even then, it's so stigmatized. You know, I remember if we were watching a movie and there was a kissing scene, we'd either, my mom or my dad will change the channel, or we tell you just, turn your eyes away as if it's like you're watching Satan or something. You're watching some demons have sex or something, or kissing. It's like a demonic, it's a shameful, guilt-filled sort of act. I grew up thinking and feeling shame and guilt about sex and about love, So I grew up and it fucked me up all my life. So as a result, I had to really, first of all, go in and see what the fuck is up here. What's wrong? What is this operating system that I've been cursed with? And it really made me contemplate and evaluate and assess, what is sex and what is the big deal and why is it such a taboo topic in so many different parts of the world? What is the big deal? What is going on here? So, I have a lot of things to say about this topic, but I'm going to discuss specifically two problems or two faulty operating systems, two faulty ideologies when it comes to sex that I'm trying to look at the worldwide as a whole. Because you got to remember, you have a country like India, which has got 1.3 billion people, right? Then you get a country like China, another probably around the same, over a billion, right? So you get a country like India, same thing there. Like, you get shamed and there's a lot of guilt and you can really only have sex after marriage, and it's culture, right? It's culture. So here's the thing, there's two. So you have that camp, let's call it the sexually repressive camp, right? That's camp number one. Then you have another camp, which is also sexually repressive, but it is disguised as sexual liberation. And that's more of the Western camp. And I want to talk about both of these, both outlooks. It's all culture, right? I mean, Terence McKenna says culture is not your friend for a reason, because this is all culturally sanctioned ideas about sex that don't make any sense. So I want to first start talking about the camp where it's just clearly sexual repression. And that has to do with religious sexual repression or cultural sexual repression. So in a country like India, it's more of a cultural thing, right? The girl is expected to, nobody's expected to have sex until after marriage. I mean, this is why you have some terrible, terrible cases of rape there. And just people are sexually repressed, man. Men are frustrated there. Women are frustrated. Everybody's frustrated, right? And then you have where I grew up in the Middle East, right? This is more of a religious thing, and you gotta remember, there's a great deal of the world population, something like 25% of the world's population is Muslim, right? So a lot of the world's population is also under this, you can't have sex until after marriage, and sex is a stigmatized thing, and it's a guilt-filled act, and it's a lot of shame around it. It's a lot of that, plus India. India has a big Muslim population, but also, it's a big country. You have a significant, over 50% of the world's population living in a very sexually repressive environment. Very sexual frustration, man. You grow up around boys. I grew up around boys. I went to school, it was an all-boys school. And, you have frustration, you see a girl, you become a fucking mess and anxious, and because you don't have contact with women. Everything's separate there, right? When people come over, there is a place for a guy, for men, and a place for women. It's so ridiculous. And this is a big problem, man, because you're talking about one of the most basic elements of being human, of humanity, and that is sex, man. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the bottom, at the very bottom, you have breathing, security, and sex. Because without sex, you can't keep this matrix going. You can't keep this matrix of life going. For life to advance, for humanity to advance, for every species to advance, there needs to be sex involved there. Sex is reproduction, right? This is how the matrix goes. You and every single one of you guys watching, me included, we came here because two people fucked. As simple as that. Take that in. How about the very fact that we wouldn't be here if two people didn't fuck? And yet there is so much stigma. Where I grew up, you can't talk about sex, man. You can't talk about sex. Like, you can't even mention it. Like I said, if it's on the TV and two people are kissing, you change the channel and you look away. This is how you're taught. It's ridiculous, right? So of course, people get frustrated and you have this over stimulation of testosterone, and so men do a lot of crazy shit there. If you go to Saudi Arabia, they're crazy about drifting. So many people die on a daily basis because of drifting. These people have so much testosterone and so much energy, and there's nobody to use that testosterone on and make love to, and sort of, because man, the feminine will complement that masculine energy, right? And will ground you. But that's not there for people there, and I feel it because that's how I grew up. So then you resort to things like drifting and doing all sorts of crazy shit. And then, there's a lot of fighting. I told you guys about how I grew up in a very violent environment. I got in so many fist fights, and of course, there's all that frustration, all that testosterone, and there's nobody to love, and there's no love around, and you know what I mean? It's really ridiculous. So take that in. We're talking about over 50% of humanity is living like that right now. Like right now. Sometimes I live in Canada now, right? And sometimes I'm like, oh man, it's good. At least there's chicks here. At least I can walk out of my house and I can see a chick and I can smile at her. She can smile at me. I can say something. She can say something back. Sometimes when I compare it by contrast to other conditions, I'm like, well, I think I live in paradise right now. And you look, that's a lot of the world's population. How can you repress something like that? How can you repress something very basic, right? How can you repress an act? There is not a greater act to express your love to someone than to have intimate sex with. That is the epitome, that is the height, the peak of showing that you love to somebody else. That is the peak. That is like the peak. You know what I mean? It's like your body's coming together and it's like you become one, and literally like the act of orgasm is ego dissolution. This is why you feel so blissful and right? You're literally now floating into infinite love, into infinite bliss. Your ego is not there momentarily. So it doesn't make sense, this sexual repression, by the big religions and lots of culture in the world, cultures, right? Just doesn't make sense, man. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. If more people were fucking and having a good time in the world, we wouldn't have all these suicide bombers and we wouldn't have all these crazy fuckers with their crazy ideologies. We wouldn't have that because, people would be a lot more chill, relax, and, you have love and intimacy in your life. And yeah, it's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. So this is camp number 1. Extreme sexual repression. Big problem. More than 50% of humanity is struggling with that right now. And they're trying to hopefully free themselves from this. Now, you have the other camp. This camp, more in the Western, right? They're definitely more sexually liberated than this camp, right? And they tell you we're sexually liberated, gays and lesbians and transgender and all of that is okay, which is a good step, right? Which is why I say this is definitely more liberating. But here's the problem with this, because this claims to be sexually liberated, right? The more of the Western camp, the people that realize, oh shit, like, because a lot of this camp used to live under like heavy Christian rules, right? And so they were also sexually repressed just as much as that camp, and they decided, fuck this shit, we're not gonna do this anymore. But here's the problem here. This camp worships money, productivity, and work. And because of that, yes, you can go meet somebody and have sex with them, right? But number one, you're expected to be at work 5 times a week, pretty much the whole day, right? Number two, there is a big no-no about having sexual relationships with your coworkers. Not that it's not happening, it is happening, but people have to sneak in the back and they have to hide and it's awkward. And it's South Park made a funny thing about it. I mentioned it in one of my videos. It's in the last season, right? Strong woman and PC principal, they fall in love, and then they actually start to have sex, and Randy walks out on them. They're in some kind of a tent and they're having sex, and he's like, "Oh my god, they're co-workers!" And they're having sex, and he starts vomiting, and the whole town finds out that they're co-workers and they're having sex. Everybody starts vomiting. So they're basically just South Park is taking a jab, it's taking a shot at this whole politically correct sexual harassment. You gotta be, you gotta be polite and you gotta behave professionally in a work environment. And the problem, the work environment is your life. That's most people's lives in this camp. Right? I live in Canada, so I get to observe this. It's the same thing in the States and a lot of European countries like that, right? So yes, it's more sexually liberated. It's a step forward, right? But again, there's a lot of sexual repression because most people are always working, and in the work you gotta be professional. You can't, like in the work you're taking a risk. If you're in like some kind of an office environment, you're taking a big risk. If you go up to a girl and say, "Hey, I think you're really beautiful," big risk. There's a big risk there for just you being honest and saying, "Hey, like, I want, I have a loving comment that I want to share with you." You're taking a risk, but you can't do that, for a lot of, and if you might take the risk, it might work out. You probably still have to hide and sneak behind, blah, 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 office politics, etc., right? So you're oppressed. It's just now, it's like you're a prisoner, but you don't know you're a prisoner. You see? And you're a prisoner to your job. So you wake up the first thing in the morning and you got fucking work and you're stressing. You come back from work, right? You're fucking stressed, right? You don't want to. A lot of people don't. You don't want to have sex. You're the last thing on your mind right now is making love to somebody else because you just feel stressed. Your boss shit all over you. You feel emasculated. Whatever. You're a woman, right? You're at work, everybody's shouting at you and screaming and you're getting anxious. You come home, you're not in the mood. You're not in the mood, right? I feel it. I feel you, Goddamn right you shouldn't be in the mood, Look at the work culture that we have. It's a big mess, right? And if you try to have sex with your lover or whatever, if you're not fully there, if you're not fully in the moment, if you're not both like really into it, and you're not both like clear-headed, it's not gonna be good. It's not gonna be good, right? You need both people to be so into it and like clear-headed, and they both need to feel good, right? They both need to be in the mood for it. So essentially, here in this camp, right, we restricted sex to a private affair in the bedroom. You go out, so you can still have it. You can go out and meet people, right? Which is again a step forward, but it's still restrained to like a bedroom. It's still like we have a problem with the naked body. I want to make a separate video for it. But like imagine going walking around naked. You'll get arrested. This is your basic body in this dimension, right? Like it's like arresting an animal. It's like arresting a squirrel saying, "Hey, squirrel, you're not dressed up, man. I see those nipples, squirrel. Hey, I see those nipples, so we're gonna arrest you, take you to jail." They'll arrest you. Even in this camp here. If I go walk around naked, I get fucking arrested. Cops will come and they fucking arrest me, take me to jail. Right? We have a problem with the naked body. Somehow we have a problem with it, right? So even here, sex is restricted to this private affair in the bedroom, right? You do it with your lover. It's you don't make don't make noise. Don't you know what I mean? Like it's a very, again, right? You can't, because we still have a problem with it. I think this is a residue from in this camp from like the Christianity, in its fundamentalist ways is also like says, "Oh, sex after marriage only," right? So there's a lot of stigma and shame and guilt about sex. So we're still living with that in this camp. It's just we don't know it. We don't know it, right? We don't know it. Because look, if it was up to us, see, a lot of dreams and like you have sexual dreams about people, right? If you were to sit down somebody in a room, a girl or a guy, and say, would you fuck this person and this person and this person if there was like no social consequences and no consequences, and you would probably have a big giant list of people you would love to fuck, you would love to experience intimacy with. Guarantee you, well, you're a man, you're a woman, guarantee you, bro. We're built for love and intimacy, right? And we're built to love and be intimate with so many people. So yeah, like it's just these social inhibitions. You can't do it at work. You can't, you know what I mean? It's like, what if it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon and me and my lover want to have a good time? Well, you can't do that. You can't fucking imagine you at work, right? And like it's 12 o'clock and your lover is right next to you in the office. I mean, this is a nice plot for a porn movie, right? But let's say you and your lover, want to have a good time. It's 12 o'clock and it's kind of sunny outside and hey, let's go have a good time. Yeah, good fucking luck. Okay, good fucking luck. Like, you're gonna have sex in the workplace. Yeah, you're gonna get fired. Or you're gonna go outside. You're gonna get arrested. Right? So you can't even do that. If you're in the, you can't even do that. So there's that repression. Where essentially what we did is we repressed things. We repressed the feminine. We repressed pleasure. There's a problem here in the West, in this camp, with pleasure, just as much as in this camp, right? So pleasure here, like orgasm, you can only have it in a private affair, in a private manner, right? There's a problem with pleasure here. There's a fundamental problem with experiencing pleasure. You're expected to work, and be productive. You see? So when it comes time to experience pleasure, you feel guilty, you feel ashamed. Should I be working right now? And then you think mechanistically, right? A lot of people think sex is mechanistic, right? Meaning, oh, you do it like this and hit her vagina from that angle, and yeah, you're gonna give her the time of her life. No. No. You gotta build intimacy. You gotta vibe together, right? You gotta build attraction. You gotta build intimacy. You gotta vibe with each other, right? You gotta both be into each other in the moment, be together in that moment, right? But a lot of people think mechanistically because that's how you're taught. You're taught to be a productive machine, a robot. So that's where the sexual repression is in this camp, right? It's just we don't know it. That's the funny thing. This is a prisoner that doesn't know it. This is a prisoner that knows it, right? Now, I like to always inspire from the hunter-gatherer lifestyle, not to go back to that time because we can't. We're domesticated. We got to work with what we have. But because the way the hunter-gatherers lived is sort of very optimal for humans, right? Now, we can't do that anymore, but we got to take some values in the ways they lived, right? Hunter-gatherers just get up in the morning, fucking you go, you get your food or whatever, and that's it. Once you got your food, you're having sex, and people have sex there in front of the tribe. It's a normal thing, right? Like you have sex and your tribe members are maybe building a little shelter or whatever. Like it's cool, right? It's cool. It's because you're in nature, you see animals having sex so much, right? And you at an early age you get to have sex, within your tribe, and it's such a normal thing. To you, it's normal. You're living in the wilderness, right? So you get your food, and then from there, you're having a good time with your tribe members. You're dancing, you're singing, and you're having sex, and you're getting intimate, and you know these people, right? So you have intimacy with them. You live with them. That's your tribe. So what we gotta do in this camp is take it fucking easy, chill, relax, right? Relax. Let people have fun. Let people experience pleasure. Stop this obsession with work and productivity. Stop this obsession. This culture is so obsessed with work and productivity. So obsessed. And that's the sexual repression here in this camp comes from the obsession with work and productivity. That either there's no time to have sex, or when I say there's no time, you might think, oh man, it takes 30 minutes or so. What I mean is, no, it takes a lot more than that, right? You need to be there for each other, right? Like when I say sex, my definition of sex is not just the act of sex. My definition of sex is the whole thing, from from the intimacy, the conversations, and the actual act of sex, and what happens after, and the things you guys do together, and the bond you share, you know, that requires time, right? A lot of people are so overworked, they don't have time. They don't have time for guys. People don't have time for their wives and their girlfriends. A lot of people here, they're working, right? Maybe they have one day during the day to spend time, like quality time. I'm talking quality time, right? With their loved one. It's like, well, you're first of all, you're stressed out of your mind from the other 6 days, right? So you come in here, you bring that stress with you, it shows, right? And then your lover, same thing. She's been stressed, he's been stressed out of their mind from working so much. Really. So this is another thing, right? The very fact that you get arrested for being naked in this camp that is supposedly liberal and sexually liberated tells you a lot. It tells, like, what, are we not comfortable with this? Like, what, like this is we all have that, right? Like, we all have, we're not going around arresting animals. Are we going around arresting animals for being naked? Well, we're an animal too. So it's really weird, you know, the sexual, it's a worldwide thing, man. It's like just a sexually repressed society, global society, right? Just in different ways. So yeah, I just felt like I want to rant and just sort of, because I've personally been on this camp many times, and then I've come to experience, I sort of experienced both camps, and I had the chance to evaluate the flaws in both of them. And my solution to this is to embrace love, embrace intimacy, embrace sex, normalize it in all the world, because it is literally the most normal thing, right? Normalize it to the point where, like, yeah, people can be having sex in the fucking street, no problem, right? And you might argue, oh, but what if children see them? It's like, well, if you go back to hunter-gatherer tribes, like, yeah, children saw adults have sex from an early age, you know, it's nature, you know, it's nature. They're gonna find out sooner or later. It's just, it's nature. They don't have to act upon it until later. You can teach them, you know, okay, well, this is what you do when you're an adult, right? But, like, I mean, if you go to hunter-gatherers, you live with them and stuff, you'll see that, yeah, like, children, and that's how we live. That's the thing. When we say hunter-gatherers, that's humans for most of their lives, right? So my solution is I want to get to a point where you see two people, you know, whatever, having sex there or something. You go to the woods, you see, and you're like, you salute it. You feel like, oh shit, they're having a good time. It's good. They're spreading love, right? That's my solution to it. Anyway, that's very hippie. I mean, the hippies tried to do that, right? But I don't know. I guess I have no solution. I just wanted to bring to your awareness the nature of your sexual repression. You might not be aware of it, but it's very well there. And again, we're always trying to liberate ourselves, our minds, our bodies, our souls. We want to be free, right? So I guess that's the whole point of making this video. God bless you all, guys. I love every single one of you. But don't forget to subscribe, or you're going to sleep with the fishes.